So, as Aral just very briefly said, accessibility is not just about wheelchairs and screen readers. And when I'm talking about accessibility, I'm also talking about the other things you might know accessibility as, such as inclusive design or universal design. And when we're looking at accessibility in terms of technologies for the web and apps and stuff like that, we're really addressing 4 main types of impairments which would affect your use of the web and apps. So first off would be visual impairments. This could include things like having low vision, being completely blind, being colorblind, and as Aral said, this also affects you if you're trying to use an app or the web in bright sunlight, if your battery's low, when you've got your screen dimmed really low, if you're on a poor connection and you can't download really large images. A lot of the accessibility involved in making things better for those situations will also improve things for people who have visual problems. Hearing, such as deafness, being hard of hearing, or maybe being in a noisy office where you're trying to, you can't hear something that's being played on your computer, or you're trying not to disturb your neighbours in a quiet environment. Motor impairments. So these are things like maybe not being able to use a mouse or a touch screen, maybe having a slow response time, maybe having limited fine motor control, or even RSI and temporary impairments like that. And cognitive impairments. So this could include learning difficulties, learning disabilities, distractibility, an inability to focus on large amounts of information at one time, trying to do multiple tasks at once, or doing something in a hurry. As one of the things that Aral and I talk about a lot in our design is avoiding doing colonial design, avoiding designing for other groups as other people, rather than integrating those groups into your business itself. Which is kind of an easy thing to say, but in terms of us, we're a very tiny team. We can't afford to be very big. Both of us are reasonably able-bodied. So what we have to do is when we're trying to design things to be more accessible, we have to make sure that we are doing our research, actually talking to people who have these impairments and seeing how they use the app, and always deferring to them when they say they have a problem with something. So how does accessibility impact us at Better? So this is a really rough diagram, which is probably going to horrify Aral, of the setup for Better. Now the thing is, we have an iOS app and a Mac app, and they use both native components and web view components. Those same web views are also compiled into our website as well, so that all of the information on the trackers and sites and the things that we're blocking using Better is also easily available just on the website without having the app itself. This means we have to consider the accessibility of the macOS platforms, the iOS platform, as well as web accessibility in general, not just Safari, as that icon would suggest. So our first accessibility focus for Better is trying to make it as easy as possible to just understand. At its core, making something easy to understand is just plain good usability, good experience design. But it also really impacts people with learning difficulties and disabilities. And all the while that Better isn't localized language-wise, we just have it in English at the moment. It makes it much easier if everything we write and put on Better is easy to understand, is in simple language, then it's easier for people where English isn't their native language. And so making Better easy to understand involves good copywriting, which is something that we're always iterating on, and trying to explain the concept of Better in the simplest way possible, which is pretty hard. Our other accessibility focus is making Better easy to use. Again, this is good usability, makes it better for absolutely everyone, but also considering how Better works for people with motor impairments and visual impairments. We don't really have to worry so much about people with hearing impairments for Better because we don't currently have any video audio or audio effects that are going to create a different situation for people who are hard of hearing. In terms of approaches, I would always recommend learning as much as possible about the accessible issues that are going to affect your design, your interface, your development before you start the design. Because as with any project, the more you know before you begin, the less you're going to have to try and unpick a bad situation later. Of course, there are many situations where we end up iterating anyway. But actually understanding just what the core concerns are before you begin means you can have in the back of your mind, oh, I need to make sure that that will work better on a screen reader, I need to make sure that those labels are in place and things like that. And I say that from experience. So in terms of Better's interface design, the key accessibility considerations we have are the interactive components. So are they easy to use? We mostly use Apple's native components for interactive elements like this, so the kind of on-off switches on the exceptions page. And they're already very accessible by design. Apple are very good at that. So we just have to make sure that we're not screwing up the accessibility they've already built in, and that we're using it in the correct way. Also things like typography. Is the text easy to read? Does it adapt well to being resized by the person using the site or the app? Because often we don't tend to stress test our designs very well. Colour. Are the colours high contrast enough for people with low vision or in bright sunlight? And also making sure that we don't rely on colour as a differentiator in the interface. So if we've got an alert, if we've got an on-off switch or something like that, that we're not relying on colour to convey that information. In terms of development, the key focus is ensuring that every part of our interface is visible to and interactive with the accessibility layer on the platform. So on a basic level, this would generally mean using the most meaningful semantic components so that the accessibility layer knows how to translate your components for various assistive technologies. So the easiest way to test these, the interaction with the accessibility layer is generally with screen readers, because they are really abstracting a lot of the information in a component away. It gives you a very clear idea of it. Voiceover on Mac is brilliant because it's free. And it was quite revolutionary when it came out because I think it was OS 10.4. Before that, people that wanted screen readers would have to pay 2,000 euros or so in order to actually be able to use their computer. So they really did make a big difference. And they also, when they came out with iPhone 3GS and they had VoiceOver on it, suddenly touchscreens were available to a wide community of people who had never been able to use a touchscreen before. It's worth bearing in mind when you're testing using VoiceOver or something like that you are simulating the experience of someone who relies on VoiceOver. So when you're testing, you'll probably find it very frustrating because the controls are different from what you're used to, and it takes a long time to get used to it. I spent so long trying to record one of these videos I'm going to show you in a minute earlier because I could not remember the shortcuts. I'm really bad with shortcuts. And also, so people will be much faster than you. But also, you've got to bear in mind, if you're using visual cues and things like that, that the people using VoiceOver generally might not be using. So this is how to enable VoiceOver on Mac, and I hope this isn't too quiet. This is using, oh, it would actually help if I plugged it in. Sorry, it takes a while.
Welcome to OS 10. VoiceOver System Preferences, Accessibility, Window, Accessibility Features, Table.
Yeah?
Quick time, better, window, sections, tab bar has keyboard focus. Main sections, you are in sections, tab bar. 5 items, news, selected, tab, 1 of 5.
So it can be quite frustrating to people who aren't used to this.
Press exceptions, selected, tab, out of sections, tab bar. Exceptions, table. In exceptions, table. Uncheck enable exception, check marks. Check enable exception, check marks. Your VoiceOver off.
So it's got some odd accent as well. You can change a lot of those kind of settings too. And often, once you get used to it, there are different shortcuts for being able to skip only to the interactive elements if you're viewing a web page, to skip to all the links and things like that. It's quite a similar process to VoiceOver on iOS, but it's actually a very different experience in terms of the interaction because, of course, you're not using keyboard navigation, you're using a touch screen. This might be a point at which you want to use like microphone input rather than spelling things out letter by letter. It's quite frustrating. There's also switch control, which is it's quite new to the Apple and just general accessibility stuff, which is where the screen will have an interface which is scrolling over like this. It will go like this between the two buttons and always going between all of the elements on the screen. And then you just tap to select the one you want, which is very good for people who have no fine motor control at all and they're just using a button or some kind of switch to interact with the computer or their phone. So one of the things that we worked really hard on recently was implementing dynamic type on our app and on the website as well. And how you do this is just one of the accessibility features. So I'll show you how you enable it. So you go into Settings, General, Accessibility, and to larger text. And this gives you the option to make all the text, generally on the iPhone, much bigger. You can go really massive as well. It's hideous, it looks awful, but it is a game changer for a lot of people who can't be staring at tiny little text on a screen. And so also if I show you on this one, so this is a comparison of what it looks like, larger text in a kind of middling setting, and the original version there. You can tell it's worthwhile because you get tweets like this. It really does make a difference to people when you just work to make things a bit better like this. There are loads of other accessibility features in the accessibility settings, and I'd recommend trying them out, both on the web and on native devices as well. Lots of different ones on Mac, too. At Indie, what we believe, this is our ethical design manifesto, which you can find here. We believe that accessibility is such a core consideration that we've put it at the very core of our ethical design manifesto. So I hope that you all, when you're working on your various decentralized technologies, or anything else really, that you make accessibility a core priority too. Thank you.